Welcome to Her Fantasy Football. You can hear us on Blog Talk Radio / Her Fantasy Football and on iTunes. Make sure to subscribe to us on herfantasyfootball.com so you can get our newsletter. We will give you our 4 fun ingredients for a fun, free FanDuel game, Diced. Also, you can listen to us on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio from 9 to 11 Eastern on Saturday nights. You can chat with us on Twitter at HerFantasyFB and on Facebook / Her Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Courtney Kirby. I'm here with my lovely sisters, Brandon Marianne Lee, and Ashley Williams. It's week 11, and I think that's the first time I did the intro. Absolutely perfect.
That's right.
Way to go. Mid-season form. Good job.
Yep. Slow clapping yourself.
Never, right? Yeah, I am. I'm proud. I'm proud, guys. Last week of the buys, I got the intro fully in full right there. Boom, boom. All right, guys, get these teams out of your lineup. The San Francisco 49ers, you don't own any of them, other than maybe Carlos Hyde. The New York Jets, I own all of them. Carolina Panthers and the Indianapolis Colts. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, you don't have to decide this week if it's the one where T.Y. Hilton goes off for 150 yards or gets you 20 points or 20 yards.
Yeah. 2
yeah,
points.
there we go. That's what I meant.
2 or 20. 2 or 20. You never know.
2 or 20.
It's exciting. Woo.
Poor T.Y. Hilton. Poor T.Y. Hilton. It's not his fault, guys.
It's not his fault, but come on
now. Do we need to have congratulations to the San Francisco 49ers? Right?
For winning a game. Congrats, guys.
I think this is special. You guys, the Giants are so bad. It's really special.
It is really special. I agree. Yeah. I agree.
We'll talk more about that later.
We'll get into it. I love it. I love it. It's week 11, people. Cheers to you.
Oh, and Jeff Broughton on YouTube already congratulated you for your great open.
Thank you.
Already got props. Yeah. Thanks for listening live.
11. Yes. All right, you guys, let's get into these matchups. Thursday night, Tennessee Titans, the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, we got the Titans. DeMarco Murray has the best matchup against this really, really tough team. The Steelers defense is on point in 2017, only giving up double digits once in the last 4 games to a running back. Murray blew up last week with 25 fantasy points in standard leagues. So there's no way you're going to bench him, or I'm going to tell you to bench him, but you need to prepare yourself. Okay. Marcus Mariota, this is going to be a tough day for Mariota as well. And he's just been mediocre thus far. Sure,
shocking.
Steelers have given up some yards in the last 2 weeks, but he's only thrown over 300 yards once this whole year. So I doubt he's going to make it twice against the Steelers. That's not where my money's going. Delaney Walker is off the injury report.
That's worth a slow clap.
Yep, there it is. He saw 9 targets last week, and although he still hasn't found the end zone, I don't think I would bench him either. I do like me some Walker. You can always start their kicker because, come on, it's suck up. I got Derrick Henry as a bit of a sleeper flex. Not an awful option, not the best option here against the Steelers. As far as the wide receivers, Pittsburgh gives up the 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. I will note that Corey Davis saw the team high of targets of 10 last week. He could have a decent fantasy points if he hadn't fumbled the ball diving into the end zone. So that's a thing. The Steelers will be shutting down the Titans' #1 wide receiver. And they may think it's going to be Corey Davis after last week. They might put more emphasis on Rashard Matthews. It's really tough to say. I will say that it's not going to be Eric Decker.
I'll say either way, it won't be Decker.
You're in a really, really deep league, and you need a flyer. You know Eric Decker won't be getting shut out. So you know he's not going to get more than 6 fantasy points, but he won't be getting shut out. Obviously, you're going to bench the Tennessee Titans defense. You don't start them against Pittsburgh. No. All right, Brandon, the Steelers.
Although I would say, really? I mean, Steelers have been pretty pedestrian as well as of late in the offensive side of the ball, although their defense has really carried this team. And again, I agree with you. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is definitely a mighty thing. I know a lot of people are going big on this game on fantasy Twitter, being like, oh, I'm starting Marcus Mariota and I'm starting Ben Roethlisberger. This would be a big shootout. And man, Are there two more disappointing quarterbacks, Marcus Mariota or Ben? Good or bad matchups, you guys? Check their game.
Won't be a
logs.
shootout. When you
What are
only
you
throw over
talking about?
under 300 yards, that by definition cannot quantify as a shootout.
It's not a shootout. It's but hey, I mean, maybe. And this is where I'm going to give it to you. All right. The last time these two teams played, it was November 17th of 2014. Now, a lot has changed since then, including Ben Roethlisberger. He hasn't missed a game so far this season, and he's still only the 21st highest scoring quarterback for fantasy this year. He's not even the top 20. That is
really good. It's really good. Consistency.
I mean, whoa.
Consistently bad.
Okay. Here's the deal. And this is in a year of terrible quarterback play where we've had numerous backups come in.
Yeah.
I don't even understand how this is like technically possible. Drew
Brees isn't even good this year.
I know. Well, not as good. He's still better than everybody else. Thank God.
Well, I mean, they're running the ball, so he's not getting as many opportunities. But I mean, just saying,
still, like, he's the 11th highest scoring.
Well, that's because nobody's good this year. That's the whole point.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. We think of Ben Roethlisberger as having these like huge home and away splits. And that is technically kind of true this year as well. He's averaging 334.33 passing yards per game and 1.33 touchdowns per game at home. And then only 253.17, but the exact same amount of touchdowns per game on the road. So yeah, technically, that's 80 yards less. But he's had only 3 home games and 6 away games. So that's crazy. And he's had 5 interceptions in both. So actually his amount of interceptions has been more at home in terms of the ratio. But all 5 of them came against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
Is there a train?
Yeah, in Denver, where I am.
Oh, wow. Nice. That was so fun. That was like, I felt like I was in, what is that movie, Hugo?
That's like the Steelers running over the...
Yeah, I was like, ooh.
on Thursday.
Or the Jags running over Ben Roethlisberger, their 5 interceptions. Sound that is.
So here's the thing, though. He's only had 3 home games, but they were against tough defenses. Minnesota, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Cincinnati Bengals. This is going to be his first home game against a not good defense. There is a possibility that this is the turning point for him. But if you look at his game log, I'm going to be honest with you, I have no other evidence to give you that that's what's going to happen here. So I don't know what to tell you other than you're going to start all the wide receivers because Tennessee's terrible against them. Antonio Brown is going to bounce back. I know he didn't do well against Indy. It was disappointing. But Juju Smith-Schuster continues to ball out with these touchdowns. I think it's the bike adorableness. I think they just think he's adorable. So they're giving him a lot more targets.
Or it's like Roethlisberger's bitterness to Martavis Bryant.
It still is a little bit. Although Bryant did come back with a bunch of targets, but one of the miscues between him and Roethlisberger resulted in an interception. So there's a possibility that they don't go back to him. So he's definitely by far the lowest on this thing. You always start Le'Veon Bell. I don't care about the matchup. Always 100 total yards. Chris Boswell's a must start. Pittsburgh's defense is a must start. I'm sorry, Marcus Mariota, but it's true. And the sleeper is Vance McDonald, who did score a touchdown last week, but he is questionable due to an ankle injury. I would not start Jesse James, but he's the only guy that's like, I guess, intriguing, but I still probably wouldn't do it.
All right, now a quick break for our sponsors, unless you're watching us on YouTube, because it's just a commercial for those who listen to us on iTunes and Block Talk Radio. And we're back. All right. We got the Detroit Lions, the Chicago Bears. The Lions. All right. This is a very scary matchup for Stafford. He has been hot over the last few weeks. So I understand. I hope he can fight through this tough matchup this week. But only one quarterback has had more than 14 fantasy points since week 2. And that was Aaron Rodgers in week 4. Yikes. Yikes. Scary. Hold me tight. Fetal position. So play him at your own risk. We do have him ranked in our top 10 because, as we said, quarterbacks are sketchy this year. They're almost like the tight ends. They're getting there. They're getting real close. But yeah, so sorry, it's not the best week for him. Golden Tate and Marvin Jones. All right. These receivers are going to get their fantasy points through PPR settings. Only one wide receiver has had double digits in standard leagues since that Green Bay matchup I was talking about in week 4. And that was Devontae Adams again last week. So I will say that Brandon was right asking that big question. Do you think Golladay is going to affect Mr. Jones? I was like, no, I don't think it should be a thing. No, it sure was a thing. Golladay saw more targets than Jones last week. So if I own Tate, I'm starting him in any setting. Standard, half PPR, full PPR, right? Regardless. But if I own the other 2 wide receivers, I'm only starting them in PPR leagues because they're going to have to get their fantasy points by receptions, not so much yardage or touchdowns, because again, this is a tough matchup. The Chicago Bears, it's 2017. It's weird, I know, are a really good defense. So that's kind of where I stand with that. Matt Prater, you're starting him, obviously. Detroit Lions defense, I have him ranked number 2. Although Chicago Bears defense is really good, their offense is not as good. And the Detroit Lions defense is super good. So I really think that you should start him. They have the 4th most fantasy points out of all the defenses. So I think they're a must start. They're going to get somewhere between 6 and 20 fantasy points. I can't tell you what it is. It's not going to be less than 6. So that's a decent floor, right?
Yep. Sure is.
Floor. And it's a very high ceiling.
Like
so I like him a lot this week. Amir Abdullah and Theo Riddick. This is Detroit's best matchup. And I don't hate them this week. I really don't. Their numbers are going up. And I think the Lions will need to use their running backs if they want to stay competitive in this game against that defense. So Abdullah's had a touchdown in each of the last 2 games. I do not hate them. As far as Eric Ebron, I don't care what he did last week. You're not starting him. Boo, boo, boo. The Bears.
All right, you guys. Supposedly, Mitchell Trubisky used some colorful language at practice when the offensive linemen decided to break from a huddle earlier than he wanted them to. It's getting hot in her. This whole team feels a lot of pressure right now, including their coaching staff. And I can't defend their coaching staff. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been questionable. And
what does the fox say? Boo, 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 boo.
There's always singing on this show.
Yeah, you saw the press conference afterward, John Fox being like, I've never been concerned about my job and I'm not going to start now. And I'm like, you should be.
Yeah, you're delusional, but all right, you do you. Jordan Howard did let you down last week. If you were one of the people on fantasy Twitter that thought he was going to become like the greatest thing that's ever happened, he's always a must start, you guys. He's always going to get the volume. This game with Green Bay was bizarre. He only got 54 yards, but you still start him. And you know, listen, 3 of the Lions' last 4 games featured an opposing running back that had at least 75 yards. In fact, the Saints had 2 of those, so I still think it's okay. Dontrell Inman, though, I don't know why everyone didn't go out and run and get this guy. Okay, so the Bears clearly traded for him because they don't have any wide receivers. If you remember correctly, their 2 top wide receivers both went out for the season before the season started. Okay, so trust me, they needed this guy. And what did they do? They targeted him 8 times in his first outing, and he caught 6 of them for 88 yards. That is what they need from him. He's the number 1 guy, you guys. There's just no debate here. He is less than a season removed from having 810 yards off of 58 catches and 4 touchdowns with the Chargers. He's going to be just fine. And I like this matchup against Detroit. They're going to have to throw the ball. It's a divisional matchup. They're going to have to keep it up. And also, Mitchell Trubisky had a season high 35 pass attempts, a season high 297 yards last week. Now, that is not me endorsing Mitchell Trubisky, but it is me endorsing Dontrell Inman. So I just think that he's still only 9% owned on Yahoo. That's crazy, you guys. You can get a number 1 wide receiver in week 11 for free right now. Just go to free agency. Just pick him up. That's crazy. Yeah. So due to the blowout potential, though, I don't know. I mean, we have the Chicago defense ranked 17 against Detroit. It's probably generous, even though the defense is probably better than that. But man, it's hard to do that if your offense isn't pulling its weight. You can't start the kicker because of a blowout, not ranked. And Adam Shaheen, you're not going to start him. But if you're in a super, super deep league, especially if Deion Sims continues to be injured, which he had to sit out last week, he is their rookie tight end. He's still learning the game like most rookie tight ends and what have you, but it does look like they want to get him more involved. So I just wanted to put his name in your ear. And I do that a lot with this team because it's like at some point someone has to break out, right? But I guess it's on Charles Inman. So there you go.
There you go.
Perfect. All right. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Cleveland Browns.
Talking about a defense you're going to start this week. For sure. You're for sure playing the Jags against the Browns. This is the kind of matchup that you've been salivating over. Also starting Marquise Lee. He led the team in targets, catching 6 of 11 targets for 55 yards and a touchdown. He didn't practice Wednesday, but this has been pretty regular pattern for him the past few weeks, so I wouldn't worry about it. He's not 100%, but at this point in time in the season, virtually no one's 100% in the league right now. So I wouldn't be too nervous. You're starting Marquise Lee. Leonard Fournette, he did not have the comeback game we were all predicting and only rushed for 33 yards off 17 touches. He also had 2 catches for 13 yards, but, he wasn't able to get anything going. And let's hope that it's not something larger than just a bad week. He had missed almost a month when you think about it, between going out with the foot injury in week 7, then they had the bye, then he was punished by the team for multiple reasons, including not showing up for the team photo, and then he had the disappointing 33 yards. This week is no cakewalk as the Browns give up the 8th fewest points to running backs, and I don't feel especially amazing about it, being as he was limited in practice on Wednesday, which might mean that he re-injured that ankle potentially more severely than we thought, which would explain why we didn't see him play much in the fourth quarter. He did come back in overtime, but they kind of held him out in the fourth quarter. I don't know. I mean, you have to start him. You're still playing him, but I'm not sure how ready he is, to be honest with you. What do you guys think? Are you nervous about the fact that this ankle injury might be a little bit bigger than we think?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any of this is good. I also think the D.D. Westbrook thing is just crazy.
We'll get to that. I'm not concerned about it right now.
Well, this is another injury guy. I just think that I don't like people coming off of injuries in general. So I may be the wrong person to ask, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm always nervous. And you know what? Sometimes people blow up on my bench because I'm too conservative. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. The difference is I don't love TJ Yeldon or Chris Ivory particularly. So you're playing Fournette. I just want to throw it out there that he was basically off for a month, came back with limited production, and then re-injured himself with an ankle. So and again, he was a player that had been injured in college. So I don't love that history of injury, but you're still going to start him. Sleepers, TJ Yeldon, he rushed 3 times for 11 yards and then caught 6 of 8 targets for 39 yards. And he is allegedly topped Ivory on the depth chart this week. I don't know if I believe it, or more so I should say, I don't know if I agree with it. But either way, this is not a good matchup to test it out because, again, the Browns have a pretty stout rush attack. So this is not the weekend that you're testing this out. Mercedes Lewis, on the other hand, he has the best matchup of the week, and he has a shot at a touchdown, as the Browns have given up 7 touchdowns to tight ends this year. So he is someone that has had 2 big games this year. There's a chance this could be another one. He does have the best matchup, as I said. So if you need a long shot on a tight end, he's someone that you can consider. Bench, Allen Hurns. He actually had a good game, 70 yards off 9 targets, caught 7 of them. But he's not going to play this week because he injured his ankle. So there's no timetable on when he will be back. But this could be bad news, as D.D. Westbrook, as Brandon said, is set to come back this week. He is a real talent, and he will have to take some catches away from someone. Timing seems like he might replace Hurns. But with that said, the ESPN Jaguars reporter Michael DiRocco said that he will not be a big part of the team's game plan this week. What I will say is they also said that about Jay Ajayi. The Eagles did, and you saw what he did. So,
yeah, but D.D. Westbrook's never played in the NFL, and he's barely
never
been able to even practice with Blake Bortles. And Blake Bortles has to be good enough to get him the ball. I don't know. It's a bad combo.
It's a valid point. You got to have that chemistry, and no one wants to rely on Blake Bortles to carry the load, which is what he'd have to do. But I'm just saying they've been pretty excited for D.D. Westbrook. I'm not playing him. That's why I have him in my bench category, but somebody for you to look out for because he is slated to replace essentially Hurns potentially. Certainly will take away some volume from him once Hurns returns.
All right, Brandon, up with the Browns.
Oh man, the Browns. Are you kidding me? You want to start someone on the Browns against the Jacksonville Jaguars? You do you. I mean, like, really? I almost said that. I almost just wrote that and stopped. But I was like, no, I gotta be a little more professional.
Some of us need people.
Don't dive too much into it, all right?
But barely. Don't worry, you guys.
I'm a Crowell owner. Talk to me.
All right. So Kenny Britt had his best game of the season last week. So, of course, now he's on the injury report and is questionable. Usual. Isaiah Crowell was also limited in Wednesday's practice. He too had a good game last week. In fact, over his last 2 games, he's totaled 213 total yards and 2 touchdowns. He's the only exception that I am willing to make against the Jacksonville Jaguars because he has the best matchup, but barely. And my only concern is that I'm not quite sure the Browns are going to get a first down, let alone near an end zone. So I don't know what the upside is there, but I do think he will get touches. We all have our own set of desperation, so maybe that's what you need, but I'm just being realistic here. Although it is good and positive to see that he has been much better recently. Corey Coleman is also going to make his appearance supposedly in week 11 for the first time after breaking his hand for the second time, 2 seasons in a row, which is just still bananas to me. And again, Josh Gordon is supposedly coming back in a couple weeks here. Again, maybe. You know, he's supposed to practice with a team, get that all together. And then Deshaun Kaiser had his best game of the season last week. Limited in practice, though, due to a rib injury that he suffered during the game. He was out for a little bit, and then he came back in. Supposedly he's going to play, but whatever. Again, it's the Jags. I'm done.
Oh, good for you, Brandon. Thank you for not wasting our time.
You're welcome.
All right, we got the Baltimore Ravens at the Green Bay Packers.
Similar to Brandon, you are not starting anybody on this team. Everyone kind of falls into the sleeper category or the bench category. So in terms of sleepers, Jeremy Maclin, he actually looked decent the week before the bye. They were on bye week last week. He caught 8 of 9 targets for 98 yards. The Packers got the 8th most points to wide receivers, and this is the best matchup for the team is the wide receivers. So what I will say is wide receiver 1s and wide receiver 2s are both able to do well. So I guess you can play Mike Wallace as well in flex spots. Again, we are talking flex only here because, again, this is not it's the Ravens, and they haven't been great. Alex Collins and Buck Allen also have a great matchup, so you can play Alex Collins in standard and Buck Allen in standard or PPR. It is a toss-up each week as to who will do better. And when you look at how the Packers have done defending running backs this season, there's no real trend towards whether the pass catching back or the power pack is actually going to do better. So, I mean, it really varies by team. So what I will say is, again, these are good flex options, but I don't feel incredibly confident about them despite a fairly good matchup in your RB1 or RB2 spots. Ben Watson is another tight end that was targeted 10 times the week before the bye. He caught 7 of them for 41 yards. But the Packers give up the fewest points to tight ends. So this might not be the best week to roll the dice with him since he's only caught 2 touchdowns on the season, and the Packers have yet to give up a touchdown to a tight end. So Ben Watson's that kind of guy that he's touchdown dependent like so many tight ends in the league. But to me, this is not the week because there's virtually no touchdown upside here. Bench, this is more just an injury update in terms of the other running backs on this team. The Ravens are not sure if Danny Woodhead, who had a hurt hamstring and just came off IR, will be ready to play in week 11 against the Packers. But it seems that Terrence West is set to suit up this week, although his role is much more murky than the fact that he will be at least suiting up. I don't know how much you're actually going to get from him. I think this is pretty much a Buck Allen, Alex Collins team at this point. So if you're a Terrence West owner, hopefully you still aren't an owner. There should be no more Terrence West owners. And if you are, I don't think he's going to play.
All right, I have a question for you, ladies.
Oh, yeah.
Buck Allen or Dion Lewis?
I think I'm going to go.
Is it PPR or standard?
Standard.
I think I'd go Deion Lewis and
Deion Lewis, yeah. So
I'd go Allen and PPR. I just feel like, well, we'll talk about the Patriots later. Everyone's on this Rex Burkhead train, and I understand, but I won't do it.
Numbers have been decent the last few weeks, so I mean, I think I'd go with him.
Lewis, yeah, because Lewis actually got more carries and did just fine. So
that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I'm happy you confirmed.
Good.
I'm going to be your husband. Sorry, go on.
There it is.
Packers.
Which husband? Who are you beating?
Brandon's husband.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just in case.
Just in case. All right. Well, I won't let him know, but Green Bay Packers, not a good matchup for anyone except for Lance Kendricks.
And Lance,
not a good matchup for anyone.
But at least it's not Martellus Bennett. Boom. Talk about that later. So let's just talk about the news here. We got Brett Hundley practicing in full after he suffered a hamstring injury. He'll play in week 11. It's fine. But in more exciting news, guess who's already taking snaps at practice?
What?
Hey.
Aaron Rodgers, everybody. The earliest he can come back is week 15, but he is targeting it. This is your sneaky pickup of the week. If you're a moron I am and dropped Aaron Rodgers,
forcing him.
Maybe, but it looked like he was.
I'm kidding.
Oh yeah. Oh, the doctor's forcing him. Oh God. Yeah, the Packers doctor. What a. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into that right now. But I will say that I think he wants to come back. They did get that win against Chicago. They still have their playoff hopes alive. If he comes back, I think that Green Bay can have a really interesting run here. So I think this could be your pickup of the week if you can possibly get him. So I know I dropped him in a bunch of leagues. So I guess take advantage of fools like me. Aaron Jones is going to miss 3 to 6 weeks with a sprained MCL. Ty Montgomery is still suffering from those rib injuries that he's been dealing with this whole time. I just wish they'd let him heal. That doctor again. But Ty Montgomery is a wide receiver who's trying to be a running back, and injuries happen, and it's really hard, and I don't blame him, but I just don't know if I can trust him either. And it's Jamal Williams, who actually saw 20 carries last week against the Bears. He didn't do a whole lot with it, to be entirely frank, but he did get the touches. He's the only running back I would consider. Over the last 2 weeks, Baltimore run defense has been stout, though, now that Brandon Williams is back. He's the defensive tackle that's kind of been the missing glue, so it's not great. But listen, some of us are desperate. There you go. The Packers defense is ranked 18 because Flacco loves to throw interceptions. So I would consider them. I think they might be sneaky. I think we got one good game out of Flacco, and then he unfortunately got concussed, which is sad. They had a bye. But I think that from here on out, we're back to old Flacco, which is...
I disagree.
All right. You think Flacco's real,
like Flacco.
Huh? All right. Maybe.
I do. I see at least 2 touchdowns this week. Maybe 3.
But you're not suggesting someone plays Flacco,
No. You don't play him, but you can play his receivers because I think 2 of them are going to get touchdowns. If not, Macklin's going to get 2.
I think this is going to be intriguing. I will say, though, Devontae Adams is the wide receiver who's definitely faring the best with Brett Hundley. There's no doubt about it. He's ranked 28 this week, which is the highest for her fantasy football rankings. But I will say that, it was 53 yards in week 9, 90 yards at a touchdown in week 10. He only had 12 yards in week 7, then a bye. So, obviously it's going in the right direction. It's interesting. Jordy is definitely the worst, though. He hasn't gone over 35 yards since week 6. The Ravens give up the second fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I don't even know if I like any of these guys. And Cobb's kind of in the middle there. Fared a little bit better, around 50 yards a pop, but no touchdowns. We have him ranked 43. No kicker, no Kendricks. You guys, there's a possibility of it being a blowout because it's Brett Hundley. I'm just worried.
That's sad. Yeah. All right. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Miami Dolphins. Game of the week.
Say for sure game of the week.
This might actually be fantasy points just because they're both so bad, right? This year, they're so bad that I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It's so exciting.
Could you have 2 quarterbacks who care less about what they're doing?
Seriously. Talk about the most apathetic quarterbacks ever.
It's amazing. But Fitzpatrick cares less just because it's
I just want to see them hug at the end of the game.
He's just too cool. Jay Cutler's just not cool enough. You know what I'm saying? It's totally opposite.
Jay Cutler's never cared. I think Fitzpatrick cared at some point, but now he's I'm just here to cash my check, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I will say, listen, he did play in week 6. Fitzpatrick did. And Mike Evans got 15 fantasy points in standard leagues, 95 yards and a touchdown. So play him. You're going to play Mike Evans. He just had a bye. Lucky him, all by himself when he got suspended last week. So he's rested. He's ready to go. He's you're not going to give me a bye in the normal when you're supposed to give me a bye? That's fine. I'll take my own bye. Suspend me. relaxing.
Are you saying that
chilling.
he
Self-imposed a bye?
Maybe
She's not, but I love the
genius.
sentiment.
No,
That would
I
be
don't think
genius.
he's that smart, but I mean, it's not a bad
Maybe.
idea, right?
He's a smart guy. He loves
you
Harry
lost your
Potter.
quarterback. I want to break. I want to finish off strong. So I'm going to take a moment.
Cheers to you, Mike Evans.
Cheers, Mike Evans. Smart. Very smart. Doug Martin should have taken the same advice. He needs a break. It has to be his week this week, you guys. I know that he's been super disappointing against bad matchups, but this is the week. I am starting him. He ran 20 times last week. I know he didn't give you the fantasy points, but I say don't give up on him. I think that the Bucs can score against the Dolphins enough where they're going to continue to use him. And I think Martin is going to have his breakout moment this week. Okay?
All right.
I think it's going to be this week.
I hope you're right.
I believe. I believe. All right, Cameron Brate. Now, same thing with Brate. Miami gives up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. I know he has done nothing for you in the last couple weeks, but if Ed Dixon can get 9 fantasy points against these guys, so can Cameron Brate. So I still believe in Cameron Brate as well. Deshaun Jackson. Jackson was okay last week without Evans. He got 80 yards receiving. It's not bad. Unfortunately for Jackson, Miami likes to give up the fantasy points to the number 1 wide receiver. That's how Miami rolls. So that does not bode well for Mr. Jackson. I think that it's going to be Mike Evans' day. So for me, he's no more than a flex option. Last week, Fitzpatrick threw for 187 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. So, yeah, that's that. No kicker. We didn't even rank him. Tampa Bay's defense was 19, but they're just not that good. It's not that Miami's good. It's just that they're not that good. So, anyways, Dolphins.
So Jay Cutler actually wasn't bad last week, but I cannot in good faith tell you to start Jay Cutler. And there's not enough teams on bye, and there's not enough impactful quarterbacks on bye to have you dig that deep to go play Jay Cutler. You're not doing it. But the reason I mentioned up top is because obviously his play does impact our wide receivers on this team, and he at least played okay last week. So where does that put us? We are starting Jarvis Landry and Devontae Parker. Landry has only been targeted under 10 times in just 2 games this season. The last week, Landry's targets were consistent in terms of he had 10 targets, catching 5 of them for, I grant you, a non-impressive 42 yards, but he did snag a touchdown. So
I love Jarvis Landry, and the people that do
upset.
not respect him drive me
Crazy.
bonkers. What are they watching?
I know.
I don't understand. I'm so confused.
I so agree.
I mean, I'd like to, it'd be nice if he caught more like 7 targets versus the 5, but you know what? He still gets you touchdowns. He does. I mean,
targets. Let's put
he's had a
quotes around
touchdown.
targets.
Yeah,
Jay
he's had a
Cutler.
touchdown in half of the games. Literally half of the games. You got a 50% chance every week that he is going to score a touchdown for you. That's not bad. Michael Thomas owners, they're still waiting on that. They'd be rejoicing at a 50% chance that he's going to score a touchdown. So you are playing Jarvis Landry. Devontae Parker continues to be the favorite of Cutler, catching 6 of 9 targets for 66 yards. He should also be in your lineup each week. And rest assured, both of these guys, the Bucs give up the 4th most points to wide receivers. So they both should have a nice day. My sleepers is the running backs, Damian Williams and Kenyon Drake. They flip-flopped on who had the better weeks the past 2 weeks, although in fairness, Drake has had good weeks both weeks. But Williams rushed 9 times for 19 yards and caught 2 passes for 20 compared to Kenyon Drake, who rushed 7 times but for 82 yards and a touchdown. So he also caught 2 catches for 10 yards. But now 66 of those yards came off 1 play. So you can throw either of them in a flex role if you are struggling to fill out your roster this week. I don't think you probably are, but they're interesting plays. I think this could be, as we said, game of the week, a really interesting matchup. And I could easily see a big play Devontae Parker, and then they throw in, Drake to obviously pound him for the touchdown. So I think you'll be fine playing either one of them in a flex. And because of this matchup is so good for the wide receivers and a healthy 8 targets that Kenny Stills saw last week, and he caught 5 of them for 67, you can also flex Kenny Stills. I'm also okay with that. Throw him in there. Why not? Now, the person I can't give you is Julius Thomas, and I'm angry that I even have to bring up his name. But after back-to-back weeks with a touchdown, I cannot skip over him. So 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago he had the yardage, but last week he only had 8 yards off 2 catches, and he was targeted 5 times, and he caught a touchdown for that 8 yards. But this is the worst matchup for the team, and I think there will be that week where Julius Thomas comes back down to earth, which is basically his status of being useless for you. This is that week, because I think this is going to be a wide receiver game, not a Julius Thomas game. So don't do it to yourself.
Don't. All right, you guys. The Los Angeles Rams to the Minnesota Vikings. Defense. This is going to be interesting.
So much defense. So it's going to be intriguing because we're getting so used to the Rams scoring like 1 million fantasy points and real life points and everything else, which is weird that that's a sentence that I can say and no one's saying that's crazy. Listen, the Rams are on the road against a tough defense, so we can't expect the same stats. You're always going to start Todd Gurley. I know this is a tough matchup. I actually was just on the Fantasy Pros podcast today as a guest, and one of the things I had to do was make a bold prediction for the week. And I decided to say that I actually believe Todd Gurley in this particular matchup is going to be the number 1 running back of the week.
Hey.
That was my bold prediction.
Against the Vikings? That is bold.
I know. It's a little crazy, but I'm pretty confident, you guys. I think they're going to use him a lot in the passing game. So especially in PPR leagues, I think you feel fine. Speaking of, Robert Woods has just really come alive, you guys. Obviously 4 touchdowns in 2 games, 2 apiece. It's pretty crazy. I can't deny that. That's obviously upside that you can't put on the bench, even though, again, it's going up against the Minnesota Vikings. And by the way, when you see that Kirk Cousins threw for over 300 yards last week, you get a little more confident. You say, oh, well, maybe. Oh, and by the way, the Vikings having a bad matchup against Washington. Thielen, Adam Thielen knows no bad matchup.
Destroyed it.
Stop it. So always Greg Zuerlein, you guys. Always. We never give up on Greg Zuerlein. Defense is ranked number 13 because Minnesota actually doesn't give up a lot of fantasy points to opposing defenses, but the LA Rams defense have been pretty killer. So if you want to start them, that's understandable. They're just towards the end of the starters instead of towards the top of the starters. That's fine. Minnesota gives up the 10th fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Jared Goff, I think he's going to be fine. I'm going to expect about 15 to 18 fantasy points. That's not going to be the 25, 30, whatever points, depending on your settings that he's been getting recently. I think he'll still be just fine, though. I don't think that he's going to fall off the face of the earth. But I am saying that if you were going to get cute and start him over like Drew Brees or something, I wouldn't do that. But I also wouldn't get cute and try to start like Blaine Gabbert over him or something because he's going up against the Texans. Like, to me, it's just, Stafford, it is what it is.
Or Goff?
Goff.
I think I'd still go Goff. I don't like Stafford's matchup either, though, and I think Goff has more potential.
Didn't you say Gabbert or Goff?
Yeah.
No. It was Brandon did. I said Stafford or Goff.
I thought you said Gabbert or Goff, and I was like, Goff, obviously.
No, I have Stafford or Goff.
Yeah.
Both bad matchups.
I mean, for me, I just feel like Robert Woods is on fire. I still feel like he's going to do well. And here's the thing with Sammy Watkins and Cooper Kupp. It's about, are you in standard leagues or are you in PPR leagues? Because basically they score the same amount of points depending on which league you're in, okay? So basically it was a typical game last week where Watkins caught 2 of his 3 targets for 41 yards and a touchdown. And then Cooper Kupp caught 6 of his 7 targets for 47 yards. For whatever reason, they only use Kupp in little things, and he doesn't score touchdowns, and then Watkins rips off 1, big one, and he scores a touchdown. So it depends on what kind of league you're in. That's really how it is. And the matchup isn't good enough for either of the Rams tight ends, so we don't need to discuss them.
It's like they give Watkins the ball enough to keep his mouth shut.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we'll give you
just
the one big play just to make you kind of happy, but then you're not really part of our game.
I also think this is Sean McVay's offense. I think that he likes to go for big plays randomly so that the defense never knows when it comes, and very rarely. Yeah. And then when it does happen, it's usually successful. And that works, It does work. I just wish we could give a couple of those to Cooper Kupp instead of just you catch 6 of your 7, but it's 40 yards. Like,
well, he was earlier in the season than Robert Woods has emerged. So that's been the problem for Cooper Kupp.
It's just, listen, if you need a wide receiver 3 or flex, it's hard to sit a wide receiver on the highest scoring team in football. I get that. So whatever you need is fine, but those are typical games for all of those players, and it is what it is.
Yep. All right, Ashley, the Vikings.
Well, Stephon Diggs pulled a Baldwin and wasn't shut down by the stingy Redskins corners last week. So that, we needed to see that. I need to see that to get the confidence in him. He caught 4 or 5 targets for 70
This is my
yards.
confidence dance. You like it?
And a touchdown. I do like it. When would you use this confidence dance?
Probably not in public. I should probably stop.
You said it, not me.
Follow us on YouTube.
So the Rams present a tough matchup this week, but since he was able to get at least 2 big plays against the Redskins, I still say start him. The upside is too high with Stephon Diggs. All you need is 1 big play from him, and he's probably good for at least 2 to 3 big plays a game, regardless of the matchup. So you're starting Stephon Diggs. And Adam Thielen, as predicted, we said that he would have a better game than Stephon Diggs, which he did. Now, I didn't think he was going to have that huge of a game. 8 of 12 for 166 yards and a touchdown. He was also the lead man in a mean game of leapfrog after his touchdown, which I hope you guys all saw. Which was
I love
glorious.
these new celebrations now that they're allowed to do it.
I know.
So glad they made that rule change because
Yeah.
it's changed the tenor of the game. And Adam
It's so
Thielen,
fun.
is he the greatest draft pick of the 2017 season?
He was one of our guys we called on our sheet saying that go get Adam Thielen. He's gonna have a great season, and he certainly is living up to that.
And you got him in
he's
the double-digit
fantastic.
rounds.
Yep.
Yep.
Freaking
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. What I will say is I have yet to see somebody do Red Rover, and so I really hope that's coming pretty soon because I think that's a glorious way to get the
Or
whole team
Duck Duck
involved.
Goose.
I think we saw Duck Duck, didn't we? I'm not sure, but it's.
I didn't see
I
it.
love how everything's reverting back to childhood games, and I think that's really fun. But anyway, back to football. Again, this is a tough matchup, but his floor is way too high to bench him, despite the fact that the wide receiver 1 usually does the best against the Rams. When you look at how other wide receivers have, in some cases, like with the Redskins last week, the wide receiver 2 usually does better, which is why we predicted that Thielen would have the bigger game, and he did. Against the Rams, the wide receiver 1 does better than wide receiver 2. But one could argue it's a toss-up between who's the wide receiver 1 at this point in terms of production. So I think both are going to be great. You're playing both of them. Now, Jerick McKinnon and Latavius Murray have been alternating good weeks.
Ew.
Last week was a Murray week, who rushed 17 times for 68 yards and had a touchdown, compared to McKinnon's 10 rush attempts for 32 yards and then 2 catches for 15. The pass catching back does better against the Rams. So McKinnon should be your guy this week. The pattern of every other week also just so happens to be in McKinnon's favor. So you can play Murray in a flex role if you want, but McKinnon should be a must start for sure in your lineup. It will be his week. So sleepers, Kyle Rudolph, he caught 5 of 7 for 37 yards, which is nothing to write home about, but his upside in general is better than most tight ends. This is not a great matchup. I'm not going to tell you it is, but at least the Rams have given up 4 touchdowns this season to tight ends. So there's a chance for this week as Rudolph is better than 2 of the 4 guys who caught touchdowns against the Rams when you look in terms of how the game script has gone thus far this season. So he's got a good chance. And again, he's getting targeted 7 times. That's more than a lot of tight ends. So it's definitely worth a possible risk there. Bench, Case Keenum, although he blew up and I can say almost beat me in one of my leagues, which was, I was like, I got Keenumed, but I didn't. I won. It was very close though. But he is going to be the starting quarterback this week.
Which I can't believe this is a
I was going to say, which should not come as a surprise. And he completed 21 of 29 passes for 304 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yeah, he had 2 interceptions as well. But did I mention 4 touchdowns from Case Keenum? Now, according to Fox Sports' Jay Glazer, the Vikings were very tempted to start Teddy Bridgewater this week, which A, means Case Keenum is on borrowed time, B, hopefully won't get in Keenum's head, and C, could mean a change in fantasy production for the supporting cast if a change is made. It may not, but it may. And I don't know why you would ever make a change on a winning team right now. It doesn't make sense to me. And I hate the fact that we have to have these conversations because it's inevitable that this is going to get to Case Keenum. And they have a really good offense going right now. We know Case Keenum's not going to be the guy down the road, but I just hate the fact we have to have this conversation at all.
He could be for the Broncos. Just saying, anything's an upgrade for him.
It could be for the Broncos, but he's not going to be a Viking next year. It's just not going to happen. But I hate that we have to have discussion because there is such great chemistry on this team right now. And I love Teddy Bridgewater, but I don't think it's the time to change it. And I don't think it's time for the conversation.
They almost put him in last week, even though he went over
know.
300 yards and 4 touchdowns. The second he threw those 2 interceptions, they had Bridgewater warming up, and I was like, oh my goodness, they're not kidding.
It's disgusting. They deserve to all be fired.
I mean, I get it. They need to see what they have in Teddy. I get that.
No, they don't. Not when they're winning.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. I understand you need to see that, but at this point, you've had him as a starter before. Evaluate this in practice. Don't mess with the chemistry of this team, especially when you've in a division where you don't have Aaron Rodgers playing right now. You have a chance at the Bears, who have been so. You have a chance to win this division. Don't mess it up. Don't do it. I just hate the possibility of what this could mean for the supporting cast in terms of McKinnon and Thielen and Diggs. I mean, they're all great players, but when you change the quarterback, that changes the dynamic of the team. And in this case, it wouldn't be a justifiable change.
It's going to be a Trent Dilfer situation. Case Keenum's going to take him all the way to the Super Bowl, and then he's going to lose his job. It's unbelievable.
Well,
sends me to a dark place.
That'd be a dark place. I think the good news is that Case Keenum went into the Vikings knowing that he was a backup. He didn't go there thinking he was going to be the starter. So at least there's like that expectation wasn't the same. It's not like Mike Glennon, like where it's just over.
No, but ride what's hot. And right now,
I know, I agree with that. Yeah,
I'm a Vikings fan, so I'll just say this: I love Teddy Bridgewater, but if they put Teddy Bridgewater in over Case Keenum, I'm gonna have to root against them, and I'm Adam
Case Keenum is one more interception away from being Tyrod Taylored.
Oh yeah.
Oh, burn.
Maybe less. Yeah.
What did I tell you in our dynasty league? I had Aaron Rodgers, boom, Trevor Siemian, benched, Tyrod Taylor, benched. I feel like this is just my luck. Like I am the reason why this is happening to these poor quarterbacks. I feel like this is I'm sorry. Don't worry, I don't own another quarterback, so it's fine. It's fine. I'm just screwed in the league. All right. We got the Washington Redskins, the New Orleans Saints, so I'm really gonna go to a dark place now. I will say yay for Kirk Cousins. He had a great game against a really tough defense. I think he learned his lesson. If you need something done right, do it yourself. Now, I doubt that Gruden planned for Cousins to run in for 2 touchdowns. I will say that I am happy for Cousins, but by him being a one-man show, he screwed over everyone else on the team. So therefore, I still hate Washington. Okay, we'll just move on here. Chris Thompson. Okay, no injury is good news, and I mean that. But for Chris Thompson owners, it is a bit of a relief that Fat Rob has been placed on IR after injuring his ankle. High ankle injury, no good. No good, guys. That means that we are back to that Samaje Perine guy that had 9 yards in the previous 3 games put together. Now, it's Washington, so most likely Perine is going to get more touches than Chris Thompson next week because that's the way it works. That's the way it works, you guys. They don't use him when they don't need him, and now he's going to get more than Thompson because for whatever reason, they just hate to do what's right. They need to watch those no drug commercials that they made us watch in middle school, this is bad. Don't do it. That's what Gruden needs for calling plays. These are bad plays. Don't do it.
Like the Dare mug, Redskins need hugs, not drugs.
Yes. Redskin needs Thompson, not anyone else on the whole team. Thank you. Thank you. Listen, tell me your expectations for Thompson. He might be huge. He might have a great game. They might screw him over again. I'm playing him as a flex. I do love him. He is great. So hopefully they use him. Vernon Davis, a solid 70-plus yards for Davis against tough defenses. So I like him this week. Jordan Reed is still not practicing. They clearly don't need to rush him back when they have Vernon Davis. Love him. As for the wide receivers, Crowder is seeing double-digit targets, so I don't know how you could bench a guy who has that many targets. He's, to me, a great flex option. Again, this is a tough matchup, but Crowder has had almost 200 yards in the last 2 games put together he's played, so that's pretty impressive. He is coming on strong late. which is really nice after I already dropped him in all of my leagues. On the bench, the kicker and the Washington's defense, the Saints.
So I will say the Saints D has been pretty legit recently.
Amazing.
So you want to get a little crazy and throw in a Saints defense? Okay, I'm not going to talk you off that ledge. But now time for my rant, because I didn't rant enough about Case Keenum. It's now time for me to rant about Drew Brees. For whatever reason, news broke that the Saints are uncertain about Drew Brees' future with the Saints. Brees has naturally stated that he doesn't plan on leaving New Orleans ever, is what he said. Apparently, some of the in the organization feel that he has lost his step a bit. So let's start with that, shall we? Drew Brees completed 18 of 25 passes for 184 yards, ran twice for 6 yards, and had a touchdown in last week's game. Now, I want to say that while those may not be fantastic fantasy numbers, when it comes to real football, which is what the organization is talking about, the Saints are apparently either stupid or greedy, as Brees is about as good as they come. I understand he's 38 years old. I get that. But Brees is the 11th highest scoring quarterback in the league right now in terms of fantasy. He is 4th in the league for completion percentage and only behind Alex Smith, Tom Brady, and Carson Wentz, who have not sucked this year. They're pretty good, and is 6th in the lead for passing yards. And while passing yards might be down slightly this year, although not by much, that is because they actually have an improved running game. So the overall foundation of the Saints is better this year, and somehow we're going to sit here and say that Drew Brees has lost his step. No,
they don't deserve him. They don't deserve him anymore.
He has thrown for over 4,000 yards for the past decade, and over 5,000 yards for 5 of those seasons. And he is on target to throw still for over 4,000 yards this year, despite the fact that we have an improved running game. So he is home and has a good matchup, and you are playing Brees because you are neither stupid or greedy. You are playing him. Gosh, it makes me angry. Anyway, on to what might make Courtney angry. Apparently, all Michael Thomas needed was for Courtney to talk some serious about him and have his elite status called into question.
He heard our show on Sirius XM Saturday nights, 9 to 11 Eastern.
Decided to come and play. Caught 9 of his 10 targets for 117 yards. Still needs those touchdowns, though, Thomas. He hasn't scored since week 4. Don't love that.
And not getting the opportunity is complete BS.
Well, I mean, I will say he has taken a little bit of a hit with the running game improving, but again, his numbers aren't bad, but it got better. It's better. We're an upward tick. I like it. I think he'll do well this week.
10 targets. 10 targets is opportunity. I don't know what more you want. You get 10 targets.
Well, 10 targets opportunity, but he's had like games with like 7 or 8 targets, which is still targets, but Anyway, onto those fantastic running backs. Last week was Kamara's game. I should say 2 weeks ago, not the actual one, but this week, that was all about Mark Ingram. He rushed 21 times for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was a beast. He won't have another week like this week. It's not going to happen, but he should be able to put up his usual double-digit points that you've become accustomed to. I think he's going to be just fine. Now, while we said that it was a Mark Ingram day, Alvin Kamara still put up a day to rave about himself. He rushed 12 times for 106 yards and had a touchdown. Plus, he caught all 5 of his targets for 32 yards. Kamara is also a must-start every single week. Both of these guys are must-starts every single week. Mm-hmm. I personally am in a dilemma last week where I have Mark Ingram, and I have Jordan Howard and Christian McCaffrey.
Ooh, that's a nice problem.
And I did not play Christian McCaffrey. I played Howard, and that was a bad choice. But Ingram was still a great choice because, again, you're playing him every single week. Now, sleepers, Ted Ginn, he had his worst game of the season by far. By far. He was only targeted 1 time, which he caught for 3 yards. But, again, that's terrible. The Redskins have let the receivers score the past 2 games. So there's a chance he can bounce back this week. But I will say Ginn is not Adam Thielen. He's not the same level of a wide receiver, too, as Adam Thielen is. But I still think he'll do okay, so you can play him. Benching everybody else.
All right, we got the Chiefs at the New York Giants.
Oh, well, I'm so lucky I have both these teams.
Yay.
Okay, I'm a little conflicted here. First of all, I'm going to say this. I'm worried this is maybe a trap game. This is a non-intellectual thing, I'm just saying, but something inside of me, maybe it's because I saw the Broncos treat the Giants like a trap game, but I'm just worried. But anyway, I'm going to now give you analysis that actually matters. That's all I'm going to say. Just putting it out there. Maybe now it won't happen. Before the bye, Kareem Hunt only had 9 carries against the Cowboys, and that was the second time in 4 games that he had less than 10 carries in a game. Now, I think that this is the not wanting to overdo it with him because he was getting a ton of touches. So Andy Reid does sometimes pull back on players that he wants to have for the long haul. I'm hoping that's what it is, and I'm hoping now that they're getting out of the bye that he's going to get a lot more touches, especially against the New York Giants, to control the clock and just kind of get this game over with. But if he doesn't bounce back this week, we're going to have another longer conversation. Let's put it that way. Harrison Butker is amazing, and you absolutely need to have this guy. He may have been dropped due to bye weeks, so go for it. He's ranked number 2. Is there anything sexier than the thought of Travis Kelce scoring you an exuberant amount of fantasy points against the New York Giants, who are so bad at defending tight ends that they've actually given up 10 touchdowns to opposing tight ends in only 9 weeks of football? Yeah. Is it just like, it's amazing. I just take that, Blake Shelton, sexiest man alive. No, it's Travis Kelce on my fantasy team. Yes, please. Thank you.
Which fantasy team are we talking about?
Not that one. Just the one that gives me points. I'm not into that type. So you can try to convince me to bench Alex Smith, but I'm not going to do it. I think he's going to be just fine because someone's got to throw Travis Kelce all those touchdowns. It's going to be Alex Smith, baby. How good is he? We have him ranked number 3. I actually thought about being like, you know what? I'm going to buck everybody. Put him number 1.
Thought about it?
Thought about it. I went number 3. I still feel
number 1. It's number 1 in your heart. I get
it's number 1 right here. Because I'm worried that they're going to get so far ahead they pull him in the 3rd quarter. Right. So that's why I put him number 3. But I think he'll score a lot of points before then. And I will not forsake you, Tyreek Hill, and neither will the person who does our wide receivers. It's you, Courtney, right?
Yes.
I thought I was bold putting Alex Smith number 3. She put Tyreek Hill number 2.
That is bold. Woo!
I
believe.
I do too. It's going to be just fine for him. Kansas City defense has been bad, but nothing is worse than the New York Giants. So you're still going to start them. We have them ranked number 10. Albert Wilson is currently not practicing. He missed the last game. It will be Demarcus Robinson if that's your jam, but it's not. And again, this is the way it is. So the Giants.
Is the Cincinnati Bengals. You do not. There's one wide receiver on the team.
Well,
everybody else is just because they have to have a certain amount of players on the field.
Personnel on the field, but they're not really wide receivers. I agree. It's a little dicey.
They just wear the jerseys.
Unlike that, though, listen, I'm going to say something about the New York Giants. There is some fantasy relevancy here, despite the fact that this entire team is crumbling from the inside out. I mean, it's just horrible. Obviously, the New York Giants ownership basically came forward and said that they're not going to get rid of Ben McAdoo until after the end of the season. But basically, the statement was saying, we're getting rid of Ben McAdoo. I mean, it was a win-lose situation there. So take that as you will. I don't know what the point is if you've basically said you're definitely getting rid of him for keeping him there, but
they didn't say they're definitely getting. They said they're going to wait for the entirety of the season to make a decision.
It felt that way, and it should. I mean, anyway.
It could have been to rally the team that seems to all have rallied against him and hate him to try to say like, hey,
don't lose hope.
Yeah, could be.
Okay. I think it's pretty bad. So here's the deal. As it stands, though, Evan Engram has 40 catches and 443 yards and 5 touchdowns on the season. He is currently on pace for 787.6 yards and 8.9 touchdowns. Now, I believe he's actually going to be the first rookie since Ditka in 1961 to go over 900 receiving yards in his rookie season. And I think he's going to do that pretty easily, because the majority of his work has actually been recently He started off a little bit slower, and I'm pretty excited for him, actually. I'm proud of him because the whole team has tanked, and he's the only person who's been consistent. Now, I don't think he's going to hit Gronkowski's 10 touchdowns. That was the most recent over the last 15 years, and I certainly don't think he's going to hit Ditka's 12 touchdowns in his rookie season, which is so mind-blowing that in 1961 a tight end had over 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. That just blows my mind. But yeah, I think this is a really historic season. So that's one good thing for the New York Giants because he's going to be around for a long time. And then also Sterling Shepard's a baller. And especially if you're in a PPR league, this guy just keeps happening. Caught 11 of his 13 targets for 142 yards. It's a great matchup. If you want to get cute, since the Chiefs give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, I guess Roger Lewis is the second guy. Caught 3 of his 4 targets for 33 yards at a touchdown. But it's a little too dart throwy for me. Orleans Darkwood continues to just be solid but not great. 70 plus yards for the third time in 4 games. Whatever. And Eli, I put him at number 19 because frankly I believe in Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram. I thought that was generous. No to the kicker, no to the defense.
No. All right, Arizona Cardinals, the Houston Texans.
Well, Blaine Gabbert's going to start week 11 as Drew Stanton suffered a knee sprain last week. So we're going to use that to set the tone for the rest of this matchup here. So here's what I'm going to say. You're starting Larry Fitzgerald still. He caught 10 of 14 targets for 113 yards last week and has a great matchup this week against Houston, who's given up the second most points. I like vets when it comes to new quarterbacks. Yes, Blaine Gabbert's not a new quarterback, but this is new in terms of him starting this season. So I like that vet combination. You could roll the dice with the Browns or Nelson since it's such a good matchup, but Larry is the must start here. We've had a couple of these games now where basically everything goes to Larry and the rest are very, very much just side players. I mean, if you look at it, JJ Nelson was targeted 4 times, only caught 1 of them. John Brown 6 times, but only caught 2 of them. Combined for under 40 yards total. So, I mean, this is a Larry's game. So he's my only must start, which may be controversial because I'm going to put AP in the sleeper category. And Courtney, I sat there long and hard and I thought about it because I told Courtney that she should drop Adrian Peterson. And I meant it. And she should have back when he was with the Saints. And then he became a Cardinal and he went off and had a fantastic game. But you know what, Courtney? I still am not convinced that it wasn't still a good choice because you know what? AP rushed 21 times for a whopping 29 yards last week. 29 yards. And if we look at the yardage since he's became a Cardinal, yes, he had that huge game of 134 yards, but then he had a 21-yard game. And then he had a huge 159-yard game. And then he had a 29-yard game. He has not scored since the first week. And Houston has given up the 3rd fewest points to running backs. I do not like him this week. I think we are looking at another 20-yard rushing game, maybe more like 40, but this is not the week he's going to get you 130, 150 yards. I just don't see it happening.
I see a pattern of good, bad, and this should be good, Ashley.
But you're being optimistic. That's why you owned AP in the first place.
Right. That's
unlike
right.
the rest of us. Right. I'm just saying, 3rd fewest points. This I understand the pattern is good, bad, but this should be bad based on the matchup. So, and when he's bad, he's bad. And he was bad in terms of when he was with the Saints, and he's been bad half of the time here with the Cardinals, and it's just not a good matchup for him. So if you can get away from playing Adrian Peterson, I suggest you do that this week. I would rather him blow up on my bench knowing he's got a terrible matchup and that he hasn't been good half these games than to put him in instead of somebody else like Jerick McKinnon, who is more than likely going to have a better game. Just saying. Now, what I will say, though, is Jermaine Gresham caught 5 of 7 targets for 64 yards and a touchdown. And this is now 2 weeks in a row that he has scored. And he does have a great matchup with this new quarterback this week. And that could mean good things for Gresham. Again, Courtney's always the one that touts that she loves tight ends when it comes to new quarterbacks. And again, he's not new to the league, but this is his first week starting with this offense. So I think it's because it's a good matchup. You've got a chance that Gresham could score again this week. I really think so.
Looked good in preseason.
He did look good in preseason. I agree with that. But
so I think that it's possible. But you're right.
Yeah.
I think Gresham could score.
I wouldn't start him over Goff, but I think Blaine Gabbert's like an interesting. If we were a DFS show, we'd be like, oh, he's so cheap, a good matchup against Houston, and we'd use accents because we do less singing.
Yeah, less singing, More accents.
Yeah.
DFS. It makes sense to me, Brandon. I totally agree.
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
All night.
Dancing for both, though.
Drinking
because you
beer,
can't use
it's
the
fine.
feel confident dance.
Yeah. Bench Andre Ellington. He's just not getting the volume, so he's on your bench.
All right, Houston Texans. All right. You never bench Hopkins unless Brock Osweiler is throwing him the ball, and Tom Savage managed to get only 4.84 fantasy points last week, and Hopkins still got double digits. Gosh darn it, he's good, isn't he? Must start. This is a great option. This is a great matchup for the wide receivers, and since Will Fuller is doubtful, you guys, most likely he will not play this week. I like Bruce Ellington, who saw 8 targets last week and found the end zone, so not bad if you need a sleeper. All right, Miller. I know on paper this is a tough matchup for Miller, but 3 running backs out of the last 4 have had double digits, and the only one that didn't was Seattle. So that's their own problem.
They don't have running backs.
I don't think that was the Cardinals. So I will say that Miller isn't as bad off as I think some people are putting him in. Like, this is like worst scenario. I don't think I think there's worse options out there than Mr. Miller. As far as sleepers, I like the Houston defense. I have them right there on the cuff at 12. They play really well against bad offenses. So luckily for them, we're good, guys. Arizona struggles. Tom Savage obviously is on your bench, and the Houston Kickers on your bench. We don't even have them ranked. All right, we got the Buffalo Bills, the Los Angeles Chargers.
So we'll start with the news for the Bills, which we kind of already touched on, but Tyrod Taylor has been benched for 5th-round rookie Nathan Peterman. Yes, Taylor had a horrible game last week, throwing 9 of 18 for 56 yards. But I think they were just waiting for a game like this to put Peterman. They were waiting for it. We knew it was coming. They could sit there and express their confidence in Tyrod Taylor all they want. Nobody bought it, despite the fact that he's only had 2 bad games all season. No, he's not someone that throws for 300 yards, but he was getting it done for the most part. I mean, they still have a winning record. Yes, it could be better, but this was inevitable. They were waiting for this to happen, and now it has happened. So most of you did not own Tyrod Taylor anyway. If you did, now you know. You have to go get Peterman if you want to do that. So he came last week near the end and threw 7 of 10 for 79 yards and a touchdown. But what Coach Sean McDermott's reasoning was, and this is a quote, "We were made to be more than 5'4", and I've come here to be more than 5'4". McDermott said, "Really, it's about becoming a better team. Every position is evaluated, and that's the direction I decided to go." Okay. So what does this mean for you? This means you were playing LaShawn McCoy with gusto because he had a terrible game last week, and they all did against the Saints, who has a good defense, I mind you. This is not the Saints of old that literally a 4-year-old could run to the end zone. They're a better defense this year, which is shocking. I know it's weird for all of us to say, but they were decent. So McCoy rushed 8 times for 49 yards and caught 3 of 5 targets for 11 yards, which was not great. But he has the best matchup on the team for this game, and he'll be relied upon heavily with this quarterback change. So make sure that you have LaShawn McCoy in. He's my only must start, though. So my sleepers, Kelvin Benjamin. He was targeted 6 times, caught 3 of them for 42 yards. And he did play in 85% of the snaps. So, I mean, he's getting his full usage. And I will say he's the only receiver on this team who might be able to out-talent the potentially bad play we will see out of Peterman. I don't know if Peterman's going to be that bad. He might be fine. But to me, Calvin Benjamin is the most talented of these wide receivers, I would say. Other than I do think Jordan Matthews is intriguing because he's the slot receiver. He only targeted 2 times for 14 yards, which is just terrible. But again, I like the fact that he's a slot receiver with this fresh quarterback coming in. It is still too risky to play because Jordan Matthews has just not done well the last few weeks. You were also not playing Zay Jones, who did return to practice Wednesday, but I do not anticipate him having a good game. And I also don't love Charles Clay, who caught 2 of his 3 targets for only 13 yards. The Chargers give the second fewest points to tight ends, and Clay has a new quarterback. So, which either means that he's going to rely on him heavily, or he's going to be unable to connect with him. And for me, it's not a great matchup or a situation to roll the dice on Charles Clay. You might have to, but I think there's some other tight ends out there that are better because I don't love this matchup at all.
I will say, update from previously where I said I had Aaron Rodgers who got hurt, and then I had Trevor Siemian who got benched, and then I had Tyrod Taylor that got benched. I did have one more quarterback in. I just put him in, and it's Case Keenum, and I apologize to everybody when he gets benched next week for Teddy Bridgewater. It's my fault, but that's the only person who I own. I have no one else to pick up. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's over for him.
It's over. It's totally over. It's done.
I just want to say, though, before we get started, there is a person named Craig Hall who says, we want more accents in all caps. So
no, don't tell Brandon that. Don't tell her that.
Next show, my friend. I got you. Los Angeles Chargers. What a disaster, because we're going to start off with the fact that Phillip Rivers is in concussion protocol and is in danger of missing his first game in I don't know forever. I hope so too, but they're very strict. He cannot play if he's still in concussion protocol.
It's something like 135 games or something crazy like that.
It's nuts. Straight. And the problem is that he actually said over the offseason, he's like, I've never been concussed in my entire 13 years of playing in the NFL. And it's like, wow, life comes at you fast. So yeah,
knock on wood, he's able to play, because that'd be really sad to see that streak.
Yeah. It would also be sad because his backup is Kellen Clemens.
That would be also really sad.
Yeah. So I don't know where else. Yeah. So unfortunately, this analysis isn't really going to be accurate or great because I don't know who's starting for them or what's going on. So I'm just being honest with you. I will say that I will start their defense regardless against Nathan Peterman, and I think that our guy. Bosa is going to just wreak havoc. So we'll see. All right. So the Bills are a hot mess, but the Chargers are, I'm not sure what to say. So let's start with this Melvin Gordon, Aaron Ekeler situation here. So Melvin Gordon did not have a good game. There's no getting around that. He carried the ball 16 times for only 27 yards. And he did manage to catch 5 of his 8 targets, but it was just for 15 yards. Now, Aaron Ekeler went in there, and it was mostly to run out the clock because at the time they were killing the Jaguars. And he killed it, right? So he was able to carry the ball 10 times for 42 yards, but he caught all 5 of his targets for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. And all these Chargers fans were all over Twitter being like, what does Melvin Gordon do better than Aaron Ekeler? Nothing. It's Aaron Ekeler all the way. Da, da, da. And then literally he fumbled the game away. And they ended up losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars when they should not have. Okay. Once he made that fumble, that key fumble, they went back to Gordon and did not go back to Ekeler at all. Now, what do we do from here? If you have Melvin Gordon, you need to get Aaron Ekeler. You got to have him as a handcuff / are they done with Melvin Gordon? Is this a sign of things to come? Is it going to happen this week, though? No. And I don't think they're going to do it at all if there's an issue with Phillip Rivers playing, because they're going to want to have someone in there who's not going to fumble the ball. That's going to be their number one priority. So this week, I'm not as concerned. But moving forward, I'm a little concerned, you guys. I genuinely am.
I mean, he looked good.
But Melvin Gordon's looked good during the rest of the season, and all these people are like, he's not very good. Like Roto World put that in one of their write-ups, and I was kind of shocked by that because normally they're kind of professional and don't really go into opinions like I do. But yeah, they were like, well, she's just not very good, frankly. And I'm like, he's been pretty solid. I don't understand that. But anyway, that is the world. Keenan Allen is the number 1 wide receiver on the team. He caught 4 of his 7 targets for 48 yards versus the Jags. And no one's good against the Jags. So I guess you're excited about that. But he hasn't had a touchdown since week 1. He hasn't got over 50 yards since week 6. Buffalo, until New Orleans and the Jets, and when they traded away their best defensive player, was actually great against the pass. So I'm a little torn about Keenan Allen and what we're going to do about him moving forward. I'm not starting him if Phillip Rivers is in there, obviously, but this is kind of like, I mean, there are a lot of players like that where you keep saying it's fine, but is it fine? I kind of feel that way. Hunter Henry, what do we do with this guy? I don't I don't know what to tell you guys. I think there are better options out there. Some of you, your trade deadline passed. Some of you, it did not. If you have Hunter Henry as your main tight end, I will suggest that you trade for a better tight end. And I'm sorry, because there's just no way to understand what his usage is going to be. He's probably one of the most frustrating fantasy players to have on your team right now. Now, last week, and the week before, he had less than 2 fantasy points. But let me tell you, Gates has 1 touchdown this year, which we said he would do to get that record. And he went over 25 yards just 1 time this entire season. So Gates isn't the one taking the work. They're just going away from the tight end. It's very weird. And I cannot advise you to start Mike Williams, Tyrell Williams, or Travis Benjamin. Benjamin had a hot streak, but then he had 0 catches last week.
Yep.
Blew it up. All right, we got the Cincinnati Bengals, the Denver Broncos. AJ Green. Green faces the Broncos defense that have given up the 4th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. If you own Green, you know that he can be shut down, scoring less than 10 fantasy points in standard leagues in 5 of the 10 games he's played. That, my friends, is not elite. If a wide receiver is going to score on the Broncos, it will most likely be someone that doesn't read green on the back of their jersey. And I don't know any of the other names, so I can't tell you who it's going to be because they might not score a touchdown this way. Let's just be honest. Joe Mixon, I will say that you can run on the Broncos.
Yeah.
I like Mixon this week. He should be in your lineups. He definitely has a ceiling, and it's 11 fantasy points. But I think he could break that ceiling this game. Not by much, but I think it's possible he could get to 15 fantasy points in standard leagues. Just saying, it's possible. He has had a touchdown in each of the last 2 weeks, but only 30-some yards. So he's got to get the yards up. As for the tight end situation, Croft was not part of the plan against the Tennessee Titans at all. But this matchup, my friends,
He will be.
money. Denver gives up the 2nd most fantasy points to tight ends. He's only owned in 48% of leagues. So if you need to stream a tight end, you guys, all those Austin Seferian-Jenkins owners, pick him up. Pick him up and play him. The Broncos love to give away fantasy points to tight ends. And you're going to play Cincinnati's defense, right? Brock Osweiler. It's exciting. It's fun stuff.
Tyler Croft is one of the best tight ends, like PPR wise, in the league.
Yeah, I know. And
He really
not
is.
even
Tyler
owning half
Eifert
of
is
the
not
leagues.
coming back. Tyler Eifert is not coming back.
No, move on, my friends. Move on. So
There you go.
yes, Brandon. Yes, yeah.
It's been a little crazy there. I'm a Tyler Croft truther, I guess.
Believe it.
I like it. Well, I'm not a believer in Andy Dalton. He's on your bench. If not, don't own him, obviously. And the Cincinnati's kickers. That's unnecessary. All right, the Broncos.
So I'm really struggling to be a believer in any Denver Bronco right now. It's really a struggle. And yes, we are from Denver, so it's personal, it's near and dear, and it's really frustrating. But what I will say is Demaryius Thomas, he caught 5 of 8 for 44 yards and a touchdown. So that's 2 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks, which is great. Emmanuel Sanders, I will admit when I'm wrong. I was very concerned about Sanders because he was clearly not healthy. And then last week, he came out and played, caught 6 of his 11 targets for 137 yards on Sunday. He looked great. And it was like one of the few people that Brock was actually connecting with. So I like him probably a little more than I like Demaryius Thomas moving forward, not going to lie to you. But the Brock doesn't have a great matchup. And the Bengals give up the 8th fewest points to wide receivers. So it is all around a not good matchup for the wide receivers of Brock this week. And it could be ugly. Not as ugly as the Patriots game, but it could. It's Courtney told you to start that defense and for a reason. So sleepers, I will say, we'll talk about the running back situation because it's just frustrating. We have to reinforce this every single week. We are in an official 100% 3-headed committee, and none of them are really worth playing. Maybe CJ Anderson in a flex, maybe. But he carried 10 times for 54 yards. Devontae Booker, 8 times for 24 yards. And Jamal Charles also carried 8 times, but for 38 yards. So it is literally a 3-headed committee. The Bengals get up to 16th most points to running back. So it's a decent matchup for there. But again, you don't know who it's going to be. And it's literally getting split down the way 3 ways. If I had to go with one, I guess I'd go Anderson, and then I'd go Booker in PPR. I think he'll have a little better game this week. He only caught 1 target for 5 yards, but again, it's probably not worth your time because it's just frustrating. So there's better options out there for you. Bench Brock Osweiler. He is playing again this week as the starting quarterback. But what I will say is Paxton Lynch has been promoted to the number 2 on the quarterback depth chart over Trevor Siemian, which means much like Tyrod Taylor and Nathan Peterman, we are just weeks away from them pulling Brock and putting Paxton Lynch in there. It's going to happen. I can pretty much guarantee you by the end of the season, Paxton Lynch will be the starting quarterback.
They should.
Why
not? Your season's over. You guys suck. Put him in. See what he can do. Then trade him away.
For everyone like you, Courtney, that are in super flex leagues and you are on your last breath waiting for Brock, go get Paxton Lynch if he's out there because I guarantee you by the end of the season, probably while you're still in playoffs, Paxton Lynch will be your
I'm playing TJ Yates this week, you guys. He's going to play. He's going to play. Mid-second quarter, he's going in.
Somehow Courtney wins with these leagues, and it's amazing.
He's going in,
It's a brutal league. It's like 16 people with a crazy deep bench, super flex league. It's
and
insane.
I cannot win a waiver wire pick to save my life. I would have to put all of my fab money down on some crap quarterback for like a week, and I probably still wouldn't get him. Somehow I lose every single time.
I don't think I've won a single waiver wire on that either.
I didn't win. I can't win. So I got Yates 2 weeks ago, and he's going in, guys. He's going in. All right, let's move on. We got the New England Patriots, the Oakland Raiders.
Well, we said that Patriots game would be a bloodbath.
And it
we
was.
underestimated the bloodbath, I believe. It was tragic. Unfortunately, it got so ugly that our favorite pick of the week, Rob Gronkowski, pretty much didn't have to do anything after he caught 4 of his 7 targets for 74 yards, which, by the way, was a bummer.
It was.
74 yards was a bummer.
He should have done much better than 74 yards. I couldn't believe he only did 74 yards.
Yeah, they didn't need him. It was
outrageous.
Just sad. Listen, Cooks also got 74 yards. It was the magic number. It was just a total joke. And I'm in the minority on this. I actually think the Patriots are going to do the same thing to the Raiders. A lot of people think that Derek Carr is the play of the week and everybody loves I don't know how Derek Carr does it, but he manages to only score 13 fantasy points while throwing over 300 yards multiple times in a season. It's amazing. It's a skill. It's
Impressive.
It really is. He may do the same thing against Patriots, but I'm not starting him. And I think the Patriots are going to embarrass them. I think Derek Carr is just the kind of slightly overrated but decent quarterback that Bill Belichick really likes to embarrass in public. In Mexico, it's over. All right. So as far as the sleepers are concerned, Kenyon Drake, LaShawn McCoy, Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, and even CJ Anderson put up over 100 total yards on the Raiders. Javorius Allen was close. He had 85 total yards, and that was while sharing the backfield with Alex Collins, who got over 50 yards. So I'm telling you guys, there's going to be a running back that goes crazy. I'm not entirely sure who that's going to be. Rex Burkhead is kind of the running back du jour that fantasy Twitter loves, so I'm sure everybody has him. That's fine. Last week, 10 carries for 36 yards, 3 catches for 27 yards, and a touchdown. Sure, that's nice. I still think this is a bit of a carousel, though. And Dion Lewis, also 14 carries for 55 yards and a rushing touchdown. He wasn't involved with the passing game. Still has a nice floor and probably is going to get a lot of work against these Raiders. So James White, 2 carries, 7 yards, 3 catches, 11 yards. It's all very messy to me. Also scored a touchdown. I forgot to mention that. Because who didn't against the Broncos? Right. But I just don't even
the 2 best players on the team. That's
right. Yeah, right. Exactly. But Chris Hogan also still isn't practicing. I wouldn't start him anyway. I think they'll be easy on him. And Martellus Bennett, the mystery. So somehow he told his agent to tell teams not to pick him up because he was going to get shoulder surgery. And then he got a phone call from Bill Belichick, and he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll come back." And not only will I come back, but I'm also going to play in the game and have catches. It's just really weird, but I'm not starting them. Oh, look, Courtney's getting attacked by a puppy.
Come here. So this dog can open any door, and he just opened the door to come down and say hello, and his parents haven't figured it out yet. It's okay, Brutus. It's okay.
Hi, Brutus.
I love you.
Well, anyway, I'm done with the Pats.
All right. Well, let me get to the Oakland Raiders while Brutus is here with me because it just feels right. All right. We just kind of touched on Carr, and this is the deal. This week, Carr gets the Patriots defense have given up the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. While this may seem like a dream matchup, considering that the Pats have given that much up, but they actually have stopped the last two quarterbacks to 10 fantasy points each. So that is not good. Keep in mind, that is Phillip Rivers and Brock Osweiler, but that's the same division that the Oakland Raiders are, right? So this may be a theme that they just have this division down. So you never know. He has scored 30 fantasy points against the Chiefs, but they give up everything too. So which Patriots defense are we going to see? That's the question. I think we're going to see the Patriots defense that are going to shut down Carr.
I agree.
Carr's been a disappointment this year. I don't know how it'd be difficult for them to do it. So that's where I stand with that. The Pats have given up the third most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. This bodes well for Cooper and Crabtree. While the Pats cornerbacks have struggled, they are even worse when it comes to facing teams that have two talented wide receivers. That's kind of the trick here. So Devin Funchess and Calvin Benjamin, when they were on the same team, combined for 30 fantasy points against the Pats. So I'm okay with you still starting them. Because as I said, it's very possible that it's so funny. Now, Grandpa found out that his dog's downstairs while I'm recording. And so I'm okay with you starting both of them. As for Jared Cook, the Pats have been okay against opposing tight ends this year, yielding the 13th most fantasy points. However, they're going to have their hands full trying to stop Cooper and Crabtree. So I actually think the Cook could be good this week. I don't mind him. He hasn't had a touchdown since week 3.
I agree.
So he's due for one, and I think it's going to be against the Pats. That's where I'm going with it. All right, Lynch. One of the biggest disappointments of the season, 2017, has been Marshawn Lynch for sure. He finally came alive before the Raiders bye week with 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the type of production that owners were looking for when they drafted him. But he faces the Pats defense have given up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. It's whether or not he sees the touches, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. They're waiting to the end of the season, trying to preserve this old man, but I don't know. He's had like disappeared sometimes, going for 3 points or less than, less than 4 times. I don't know. I say this is the high hopes, low expectation player of the week is Mr. Marshawn Lynch. And you don't start the Oakland defense, obviously, against Tom Brady. That would be silly. All right, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys.
We'll make this quick because the Eagles are coming off a bye and they're just a fantastic team. You're playing Carson Wentz. This is a no-brainer. Zach Ertz is practicing on Wednesday. He is expected to play, which means that you are playing Zach Ertz. Jay Ajayi, he rushed 8 times for 77 yards and a touchdown in week 9, and that was with a limited playbook. So you got the bye week that could not have come at a better time for him to get caught up a bit with the Eagles offense. It is expected that he will play in a bigger role this week, which means that unlike week 9, he should outtouch both Blunt and Clement. I do want to point out that this team insists that Blunt will stay involved. They did not specify how. And that Clement has earned a weekly role, which makes sense. He rushed 12 times for 51 yards and a touchdown. But I said it 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to say it again. The Eagles have a running back by committee style team for a long time now, and I do not see this changing. They are a committee team. Okay. So while yes, it's obviously a hit for Blunt owners, I like Clement and I like Blunt. And I think you could throw all of them in potentially in a flex role. I think there's a chance that Blunt could score, but Ajayi is going to be the lead back and he is someone that you can absolutely start. Alshon Jeffrey, you can start him as well. Him and Wentz have finally gotten into a groove the past few weeks. He caught 6 of 11 targets for 84 yards before the bye and 2 touchdowns. And he has now scored a touchdown and or had more than 70 yards in 5 of his last 7 games. He is a must start. You were playing Alshon Jeffrey. Sadly, Nelson Aguilar has seen a decline now that Jeffrey is hot. But you know what? I think that was up against the no-fly zone where Alshon Jeffrey didn't do great. But this is a much more favorable matchup. So I think Aguilar is actually going to score this week. I like him. Put him in. I'm not going to go that far for Torrey Smith or Matt Collins. They have been pretty useless all season, so they are on your bench. You're not playing them. In regards to the Cowboys, we got to give our weekly update for Ezekiel Elliott. He will no longer appeal his 6-game suspension. So he is serving the suspension. It is done with, guys. It is done. What I will say is that it has been said that Elliott will spend his suspension away from Dallas, perhaps in a foreign country, preparing for his return. So we are going to hope that Ezekiel Elliott does not get himself into any trouble over these 6 weeks.
Yeah, don't go anywhere where hashish is legal, my friend. Leave it.
Leave it.
Don't do it, please.
Please don't do it. Please
don't be arrested in a foreign country, please.
Wouldn't that be classic?
Don't be arrested in a foreign country.
Oh God.
Wouldn't it be good? So just a little heads up there.
So many bad things can go wrong.
But that's over. Now, what I will say is Dak Prescott, he did not go out last week and throw the ball nearly as much as we thought he would. He did not have that great of a game, only 176 yards. But what I will say is his left tackle was out, which greatly hurt the entire game from every single facet of this game. And it is uncertain whether left tackle Tyron Smith will actually play this week. So that will kill the passing game and potentially the whole game if he does not return. We saw how big of an impact that was last week. Now, Des Bryant, he caught 3 of 7 for 39 yards. He's not 100%. That is clear. He is still the most targeted player on this team. So and they will need to pass. So he is still a wide receiver 2 and a must start, but he's not a wide receiver 1. He's a wide receiver 2 at this point. You still need to play him. I don't love Cole Beasley or Terrence Williams. If I had to pick one, I'd go Terrence Williams with upside just because Des is not 100%, but I think you've got better flex options out there than him. Alfred Morris had 11 carries for 53 yards. Wasn't great. Darren McFadden had just 1 carry. And then Rod Smith rushed 3 times for 14 yards, but he did catch 4 passes and was targeted 6 times for 15 yards. So we've at least established we've got a pass catching back in Rod Smith. Alfred Morris is going to be your power back. They're not great. There may be flex options. Hopefully you got something better. But what I will say is that Jason Witten caught 7 passes for 59 yards, which that's not, it's not right home about, but he is the best matchup on the team. And with Des still not fully healthy, he could be leaned on more than usual. And I'd be okay with you flexing Jason Witten and putting him in. I'm okay with it.
Yikes. All right. Atlanta Falcons, the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, guys. Well, Julio Jones. All right. 6 catches for 57 yards last week. No touchdowns. Still only 1 touchdown on the season. This is kind of like my Andrew Luck updates, but we didn't have the Colts this week. It's just pretty standard. That's what I do. You have to start him. So there you go. And at least Seattle won't have Richard Sherman. So you're welcome. And you start Matt Bryant. And everyone else, it's very questionable. Doubtful, though, is unfortunately Devontae Freeman, who suffered his 2nd concussion of the season. Adam Schefter reported that he believes that he will miss this week. I mean, keep your eye on this. It could be more time. Concussions are fluky and weird, and they all heal differently. I am worried for him. Get well soon, Devontae Freeman. This does make Tevin Coleman a must start. Coleman was able to rush for 83 yards last week and score a touchdown. So I know it's Seattle and they're a very tough defense, but look around at the other running backs like in the league. I mean, I'm sorry, but you could do a lot worse than Tevin Coleman with Devontae Freeman out. So Matt Ryan in Seattle, when he's the master of winning games with about 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, or 1 touchdown and interception. Yeah, I don't think so, guys. Bad news. So I think you probably have better options than Matt Ryan at this point. But Matty Ice is just pretty lackluster this year. It's just the way it is. And 3 games in a row now with Austin Hooper with 6 targets, 2 of which of the 3 games that he's played, he's been able to score a touchdown. Now, he may have turned a corner, and Seattle gives up the 14th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. It is one of the cushier matchups, but and then you bench the defense because it's going up against Seattle Seahawks.
There you go. Ashley.
So I'm going to start with what Brandon kind of touched on. Cornerback Richard Sherman has been diagnosed with a ruptured Achilles tendon. Oh, ouch. He's done for the season. What I will say is, yes, he's a big part of this defense, but this defense is deep. Their depth is insane. They're a solid defense. They're still going to be tough to play against, and you can still play them this week. So Russell Wilson, you are playing him. You are always starting Wilson. Now, I will say that he did have also got hit in the head, and the team may be facing consequences because they did not follow concussion protocol. So we'll have to hear on that, but you're still playing
Seattle? doing something wrong?
Pete Carroll?
Please, no.
Yeah.
He's going to have to go back to college just to come back to pros. Just go back to college.
So, we'll see. But Jimmy Graham, you are playing him. He does not have a great matchup this week, but you're not benching a healthy Graham. He caught 6 of 9 for 27 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. That's all that really matters. And he has scored now at least once in 4 of the last 5 games. You are playing him. You are also playing Doug Baldwin. He had 95 yards, which means he has topped more than 90 yards in 3 of his last 4 games. These are trends that we like to see. It is a bad matchup, but you are still playing him. I don't love Paul Richardson or Tyler Lockett as much this week because of that bad matchup. But when Wilson is throwing as much as he is, it's hard not to consider throwing them in as a flex. I continue to like Richardson more than I like Lockett, given the choice, just because Richardson's a bit more of the big play guy. So I prefer that if I'm going to have the upside for a flex. But I don't know. Bench the entire running back. Thomas Rawls rushed 10 times for 27 yards. He actually looked better than I thought when you look at the stats, but it's just terrible. J.D. McKissick, 4 of 5 for 20. C.J. Prosise is on IR. Eddie Lacy is going to come back this week, which will ruin anything that Rawls potentially had going. So as always, you're benching all of the running backs on this team.
Fabulous. All right, you guys, that's week 11, last week of buys. Get them out of your lineup. San Francisco 49ers, New York Jets, Carolina Panthers, and the Indianapolis Colts. Bye-bye. Make sure to tune into us on Saturday night on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio from 9 to 11 Eastern. We will be there. You can call in. We'll answer your questions. And if you can't get a hold of us there, ask your questions on Twitter at HerFantasyFB, on Facebook /HerFantasyFootball. Until next time, guys, no more faking it.